quick random live stream. Just gonna do a little Ask Me Anything, chat about tech, software engineering, whatever else, vibe coding. Give a little bit of time for people to get in here. I've not gone live on YouTube in a long time, so we'll see if anyone actually joins in here or not. Welcome in. How are we doing? I'm also trying to do this from my phone, which I've never done before, so I don't really know how these things work. Give it a minute. Let a couple people get in here. Welcome. How are we doing? Just doing a quick chat, ask me anything. We can chat about whatever y'all want. Tech, software engineering, vibe coding, all that fun stuff. I'll answer whatever questions y'all have. I probably won't be live for too long. Just a spontaneous thing. Felt like hopping on here for a minute. Hi, None Tech channel. How are you doing? I'm doing good. How are you doing? Love your content. Appreciate it. Yo, you live? We are live for a minute, for a little bit. Do a little chat. Also, how's the like audio and stuff? Because like I said, I've basically never done this. I've never done it in this way. I usually use my actual setup, and I'm just like using my phone and this mic. What do we want to chat about, y'all? It's good? Cool. I'm learning web dev in 2025. Hey, let's get it. Everything's fine? Cool. You should do it more often? Yeah, I want to. I used to go live like once a week on TikTok back in like the earlier days of my channel, and it was a lot of fun. And we used to get like a ton of people in there. There'd be like a couple hundred people at a time. But then like slowly it just stopped working. Like the algorithm just didn't seem to like it. So I stopped doing it. Like I went from having hundreds of viewers to like 50 viewers to like 10 viewers to like sometimes I'd go live and I'd get like 5, and I was like, all right, TikTok doesn't like me anymore. IT and coding's not for everyone? Yeah, I'd agree. I don't think anything's for everyone though. Like I would never say like, oh, everybody needs to be a software engineer, or everybody needs to do this or that. Like I don't think it's true for anything. Hoodie's nice. Hey, appreciate it. Shout out to Clement and Algo Expert for the free hoodie. React or Angular you prefer? I mean, I prefer React, but like it doesn't really matter all that much. Like it's all like they're all just like tools, right? And use whatever tool is appropriate for the job. And personally, I find that I think React is easier to write. I think the open source ecosystem at this point in the game is bigger and just has a lot more to offer. And I think you're more likely to find developers to work with you if you're working in React. But they're all fine. Yeah, do it on YouTube. Yeah, I want to. Have you vibe coded recently or lately? I can't say that I've been doing a whole lot of vibe coding. I kind of want to try it though. I know Prime's doing like a vibe coding like live stream thing where he's like I guess like making a game or something over the course of like a week. And I'm not gonna do something that extreme, but I do sort of want to live stream like some vibe coding at some point. Just try it out. Or maybe I'll do a video. I thought about doing like my most viewed video ever is I tried every AI coding assistant, and that was like 2 years ago now, I think. So they've all changed a lot, and vibe coding didn't exist back then. So I could do it again and like try vibe coding with all the different tools. All right, tell us about something SaaS business. What about SaaS businesses? Golang is a good programming language. Facts. Do you think CS master's degree is worth it after 3 years of professional working experience? If there's a door it's going to open for you that you want, then sure. If it's not going to open one of those doors, then probably not, unless it's just something that you personally want to do, right? So like this can vary a lot on what your undergrad is, if where you live, what your 3 years of experience are. But say one day you might want to teach. Master's degree, going to be almost necessary, or at least at the collegiate level. If you want to do some more specialized things in like machine learning or something like that, the master's degree might be helpful. If you work for an employer who will pay for it and give you a raise for getting it, it could be a good idea. But if it's purely just like to say you have a master's degree, maybe not worth it, but it just depends. What are you doing right now? Still an algo expert? I mean, yeah, but like YouTube and stuff is essentially my full-time job at this point. I hope you're doing good. I have a question about being a software engineering test. I was really bad at coding, object-oriented programming, and backend stuff in college, but I like automation logic and I'm good with tools. Can you give me some tips? I mean, it's hard for me to like pinpoint what exactly you're asking for as far as like tips on that. And I've never been a SDET, so I'm not really sure. I just started coding, just started with HTML with AI for styling. Nice. I hope you enjoy the journey. How better do I know CS to be better at back? I'm not sure I understand the question. What is vibe coding as a concept? So my understanding of the great vibe coding is it's the idea of just using AI and like using tools like Cursor, things like that. And rather than actually understanding the code, just sort of going off vibes. So being like, hey, Cursor, build this thing for me. And then when it doesn't work, or if you have options to choose from, just like choose whichever one seems the vibiest. And it's sort of the idea of trying to build software without any actual background in software development and just going off the vibes, I guess. Are you currently doing anything else except Algo Expert and YouTube? No, not really, no. I have other like small ventures I'm a part of, I guess, but my like full-time job essentially is YouTube, yeah. I need to ask a question. How to understand Java? I'm a JS dev, go easy. How to understand Java? Practice, I guess? I don't know. I don't think there's anything like unique about Java that makes it like particularly less easy to understand. I would say Java fundamentally is object-oriented and object-oriented programming, and specifically like class-based object-oriented programming versus in JavaScript having like the prototype chain is sort of a different feeling. And there's probably something to be said for spending some time on learning object-oriented programming concepts really well in like a language agnostic way. So just like making sure you deeply understand what exactly a class is, what an instance of that class is, and things like that. And I think that'll make Java a lot easier to understand because the language itself, like the actual syntax, while it's got some quirks to it, is not that different from like JavaScript syntax, or at least like TypeScript syntax. Does YouTube pay you, or how does YouTube pay you every month? So YouTube gives you a check every month for ads, but the majority of my revenue, and I would guess the majority of the revenue for most people in the like tech and software engineering niche, is not coming from YouTube. Some of it does, but the majority comes from sponsors. Do I need to have a degree in computer science to be a backend developer? No, not necessarily. It's going to make it a lot easier, but you don't like fundamentally need a degree. I just finished a coding bootcamp. Can I get your honest opinion about my chances of being hired with zero professional experience aside from projects now that AI is present and many seniors can use that? So I don't think AI is going to make a difference. I think people will use it as an excuse to not get a job, to be honest, but I don't think it actually is going to make a difference. Is the current market conditions going to make a difference? Yes, but I don't think that is actually all that reliant on AI. If anything, I think AI has helped the market because so many companies are hiring to build AI products right now. But to answer your question, can you get a job after the coding bootcamp? Sure. What are your chances? I have no idea. It's sort of impossible for me to give like a number to it. Is it going to be hard? Yes. Is it possible? Yes. Any tips for people struggling to get a job, searching for one for the past year? So I would say there's only really 2 steps to getting a job. So figure out which of the 2 steps is causing the problem. Step 1 is getting interviews. Step 2, passing interviews. If you're not getting interviews, work on your resume, make it the best document you've ever made in your life, and build projects, do whatever it is to make that resume better. And if you are getting, or it could also be that you're not getting interviews because you're just not applying enough, in which case just apply to more jobs. If you are getting interviews and then you're not getting jobs, then the solution is go get better at interviews, probably coding interviews, in which case, shameless plug, Algo Expert is a good choice. Obviously, there's competitors, you can use other products too. Just figure out whichever one's best for you and get better at the actual coding interview process and figure out where it is that you're struggling there. You ignored my comment. I feel a bit salty. I'll go try and find it. I didn't ignore it. I hadn't even gotten to that point yet. I was talking about Java dependencies. I import something, IntelliJ recognizes it, and then class not found. I know object-oriented programming from C++. Thanks for the reply. Yeah, I think it's just like getting used to the tools and getting used to the quirks of the language. Can people with learning difficulties, dyslexia, ADHD learn IT? Yes or no? Of course. Algo Expert? Yes, sir. Algo Expert. We love some Algo Expert up in here. What's your desk setup look like? Oh, it's disgusting. Do I dare show you? Should I show y'all what is behind the camera? It is bad. Oh God. Okay, it's a mess. I'll show y'all. Here, let me turn this light on because you're not gonna be able to see over here. So, oh God, this is bad. So if we turn the camera, oh gosh. So we've got this giant monitor. There's a camera up there, the microphone, another camera back there, and then a laptop. And it is a absolute giant mess. Okay, now we gotta put this back. Thoughts on blockchain development? I mean, if you're into blockchain, it's cool. And if you're not, it's not. I think it probably will be a growing thing over time, but who knows? Is AI hype your point of view? I mean, it is hype, but it's also a real thing. It's here to stay, and it's going to, I think, deeply impact the world, probably more than any technology has since like the internet or mobile phones. Have you tried Lynx React? No, I have not. Do you play chess? I love chess. I play chess literally every day. I'm not that good, but I play like constantly. You call that a mess? Oh, it's. I should have shown you the lack of cable management, and also the fact that you can't close the door to my office because of this light stand that's literally in the doorway, and you have to like squeeze through. Well, if somebody from another country wants to get a job in the US as a remote position, what are the chances? It's very, very, very difficult. It's hard for me to speak on that exactly because I haven't done it, but you have to think you're competing against people who are in the US, and companies know that there's going to be issues with time zones, there's going to be issues with like the legal process of all that. Like it's pretty complicated to hire internationally. So yeah, it's difficult. It is possible. Like I've heard of people doing it, and there's companies that do it intentionally. Like there's companies that outsource intentionally. But if you're trying to get a job that was intended for people in the US, while not in the US, it's going to be very, very difficult. Do you use a Mac Mini? No, I don't. I use a like overpowered MacBook Pro, and then I also have a like PC I built, but I don't use that very much. Go or TypeScript? Just depends what you're doing. They're just different. If it's a mess, then what should I say to mine? I don't think I showed enough to demonstrate how messy it is. It's bad. Like it's a lot worse than it might have seemed in that. Which company is well-positioned AI race? Facebook, Google, Perplexity, or anything? I mean, I think it's hard to know yet. I think they're all approaching it in different ways. I think Meta's approach of open source is really interesting and a little bit unique. I don't know if they're as well positioned as some of the other companies because of both their reputation as well as the products they build aren't as like, it's not as useful to have AI. Like for instance, on Instagram, there's like that thing where it's like chat with your AI thing. And I'm like, I don't know why I would why I'd want to. Um, versus companies like Google have, I think, more obvious uses for the AI. So and potentially more data that's useful. So I would argue that Google and Amazon and maybe Microsoft are probably the ones who have the most useful data. And then OpenAI, I think, has the sort of first mover advantage a little bit, but I think that's shrinking a lot at this point. Let's see. I'm using AlgoExpert preparing for my upcoming interviews and focusing on both data structures, algorithms, web, and app dev. Hey, I hope you're enjoying it. Difference between React.js and Next.js. So React is a library for the front end, and Next.js is a framework that sort of is built around React to allow for server-side rendering and a bunch of other useful tools. So they sort of work together. All right, let me go through these pretty quick because we're kind of behind. Would you recommend to focus on one programming language and be good at it, or learn high-demand languages and just decent to land my first job? Get good at one first, and then once you get good at one, it becomes really easy to learn more. Do you have a girlfriend or taken by an AI girlfriend? I do not. No AI girlfriends either. I use Dust as my monitor stand. That's hilarious. I'm 18. I am an 18-year-old blockchain developer fresher. I am working at a company for $100 per month in India. What should I do next is for my age, which help me in the future? I don't know. It's hard for me to say like, oh, you should do this thing next because like I don't know you or your personal situation. I also have never even been to the country you live in. Do you recommend only being front-end development advanced or front-end devs should back into survive as there's so many info pollution about this? I think all developers should understand both sides of the stack. I think front-end developers should understand back-end and back-end developers should understand front-end, but I also think you should specialize to some degree. So I would say a little bit of both, but I think you should, in most cases, become sort of a master of one thing rather than the like true jack of all trades, but also make sure you understand the whole thing. When did you start coding? I would say my senior year of high school is when I like actually started to the point where I understood what I was doing when I took AP Computer Science. Is there any subsequent agent that could help me cold email HR through LinkedIn on its own? I'm sure there is, but I don't know. What keyboard and mouse are you using? I don't know, some cheap thing I bought on Amazon. Difference between React and Next, I already answered that. Will vibe coding replace SF if window context tokens go higher and higher? No. Vibe coding I don't think is replacing anything, but it's kind of fun, and it's a fun concept. Advice for entry-level programmers in the AI area? I don't think I have like AI-specific advice, but I would say advice for entry-level programmers in general, just like practice, build stuff, build real things, don't just do tutorials constantly, and trust the process, I guess. I tried Front-End Expert, just initial part. Seriously, bro, it's deep and proper explanation. Love it. The platform is built on Next, like entire AlgoExpert, because in one video of Clement, he told React. First of all, I appreciate it. I'm glad you like Front-End Expert. It always makes me super happy when I see people enjoy the product. As far as the actual infrastructure that AlgoExpert uses, I don't believe Next is used anywhere, but honestly, I haven't really worked in the proper code base. Let's see. Have you streaming side? I've never streamed coding anything. I might try it though. I think it'd be fun. I've never used a framework, only Vanilla.js for my projects. Should I start using one? What advantages for single site projects from what I've seen? Depends what you want. If your goal is just to build stuff, do it in whatever way you think is going to be easiest for what you're trying to build. If you're trying to build skills to get a job, then ultimately you're going to need to learn React or some frameworks if you're trying to do front-end stuff. And also, if you're finding that there's complexity in what you're trying to build that is becoming very difficult to build with vanilla, then there's a good chance that there's frameworks out there that'll make it easier. What do you think about coding after AI? I don't think AI has necessarily changed much of anything. Other than like, I think it's easier to learn now than ever, and it's easier to get answers to your questions and to sort of unblock yourself. But other than that, I don't think much has changed. Who's the most talented and experienced React developer you've worked with? It depends what you mean by work with. I mean, I worked at Meta, so you could argue like, I guess like Dan Abramov or someone like that probably, but like I didn't like directly work with him. Like I never had a conversation with him. If you mean people I like actually worked with, there was a guy I worked with on my team at Meta. I won't say his name just for privacy, but he was one of those people who just, it seemed like he knew everything and not in like a cocky way, but just like in a legitimately seemed to know like everything way. Like you ask him a question and he has like an encyclopedia type answer. And he was just like the most insanely productive React developer I've ever worked with. And I learned a lot from him. Does being a generalist mean working across different domains, or does it imply being technology agnostic? I mean, I guess both, but I think generally speaking, I don't think generalists exist all that much, at least in an individual job. Like you might sort of at one point in time do one thing and then another time do another thing, but it's just inefficient to have people sort of working all across the stack and things like that. So I don't actually think it happens all that much. But theoretically, it's what it means. Zark Muckerberg. Can I go to TypeScript without learning JS seriously? I would not. I mean, like theoretically, can you? Yes. But TypeScript is a syntax extension of JavaScript. So I think it makes sense to learn JavaScript first to understand what is JavaScript and what is the things that TypeScript is extending JavaScript with. How long did it take you to master front end? I don't know what it means to say you've mastered front end. I don't know if I would say I've mastered front end. I don't know if you ever can like master it, but I don't know. It depends on like how to quantify that. If you mean got to a point where I could be productive in a like production code base, maybe like a year. But again, it's very subjective. Dice DB is a new thing in the market. Did you give it a try? I've never heard of it. What does Dice DB do? JavaScript versus PHP? I mean, they're just different. JavaScript is primarily for the front end, although you can use it on the back end, and PHP is primarily for the back end, although you can kind of sort of with like embedded HTML use it for the front end, but just different. I'm not a huge PHP fan, to be honest, but it is what it is. What is the best way to learn something that has horrible, missing, or outdated docs? AI is trying to help, but it only knows outdated stuff. What's the best way to learn something that has horrible, missing, or outdated docs? Yeah, I would say AI is a good place to start. And you can try like looking on Stack Overflow and stuff like that. But I will say if something truly has no documentation, no like modern tutorials anywhere, and AI tools don't know anything about it, it's probably not a good tool to be using. I'm a senior in high school right now. I want to pursue a computer science degree. I'm passionate about it, but I'm scared I will not have a job. Is it that hard to get a job? I mean, is it hard to get a job? Yeah. But is it impossible? No. And yeah, I don't know. Well, one thing I will say is a lot of people think about computer science as what it was in like 2019 or 2020 when it was like impossible to not get a job. It was just like incredibly easy because all of these companies were hiring so much. And now it's not that. But if you compare computer science to a mechanical engineering degree or a civil engineering degree or some other like engineering or STEM degree, is it harder to get a job with a computer science degree than one of those degrees? No, I don't think so. So is it this like automatic 6-figure job out of college thing anymore? No, probably not, unless you go to like a top 10 or 20 school in the US. But is it significantly harder to get a job with a computer science degree than some other STEM degree? I don't think so. And it's definitely significantly easier than the vast majority of degrees because, well, the vast majority of degrees are kind of useless. Why does my code work? That's a good question that nobody will ever know. Where are you from? Originally, I'm from Texas, San Antonio, but I live in Seattle. I've lived here for like 8-9 years. Why is my code getting errors? Also questions that nobody will ever know the answer to. What is landing a job as a front-end developer like in 2025? What to expect in this year? I mean, I don't think it's like fundamentally that much different than it's been the last few years. It's difficult to find jobs. There's a lot of competition, but they do exist. Is getting into Web3 worth it? Can be if it's interesting to you. Diddy's behind you? Oh no. There's a lot of finished projects using said horrible tool and tutorials, but they only cover some aspects of the massive library. There aren't any replacement tools. Yeah, I mean, I don't even know how I would go about trying to learn a library without documentation for it. You could try forking the library and then asking an AI tool like Cursor or Augment or Windsurf or something to write documentation for you and see if that documentation is any good. So rather than just like asking ChatGPT online or something to how to do something, like actually clone or fork the repository and then try to write documentation in that clone or fork and see if that works. But I don't know that it's going to work that well. It probably won't. Best language to learn depends what you're interested in. I want to build a SaaS business. Would you recommend a programming language for it? Depends what the business is and what you're trying to do. And please explain why this language I should learn. You should learn whatever the tool is that's best for the thing you're trying to do, but there's no one size fits all. That's like saying I want to go into like someone in construction and being like, I want to build something. What tool do I learn? And it's like, oh, I don't know. Like, do you need hammers for this for this project? Maybe. Do you need like it's kind of impossible to answer. CS50 is good for learning CS from scratch. Yeah, CS50 is great. How does it take to learn programming language that you suggested? I didn't suggest one, so I don't know. Why you left Facebook as a software engineer? Does YouTube pay more than Facebook Meta? So I left because one, to join Algo Expert and build Front-End Expert because it just felt like something I really wanted to do and I was passionate about. And generally speaking, I would say look around the room that you're in. And if you don't see people doing the things that you want to be doing, even if those are great people, intelligent, nice, kind people that you enjoy being around, which is what it was at Meta, if you look around and it's like, I can't really see somebody here doing what I think I would want to be doing in 5 years, it might not be a good place to stay long term. That's sort of what my thought was. And I love the fact that I just get to yap on the internet all day. As far as pay, you can make a lot of money on YouTube, and some people do, and you can also be broke on YouTube, and some people are that. But I'll just say I have no plans to go back to big tech anytime soon. Is Flutter worth learning? If you want to use it, it can be. I've experience in competitive programming, won some national informatics Olympiads. I'm kind of good at this. That's cool. And now I want to be in advanced web development. How long will this take? I mean, I don't know. It's impossible for me to ever say like, oh, this thing is going to take you this long to learn, because people learn at different paces. People learn in different ways. People learn in literally different mediums, right? Like, are you paying for courses? Are you going to a university? Are you just trying to learn on your own? People spend different amount of time per day on things, and it's impossible to say, but I don't know. What do you think about vibe coding? We talked about it earlier. Vibe coding is fun as a concept, and I think it's an interesting way to sort of test AI and see how well it can work. But like, as far as like actually using it in production, it's not a thing, right? Like, if you tried to actually build something vibe coding and you actually like do not know how to program, the thing that you build is not going to work. Like, it just fundamentally is not going to work in the end. Or it's going to have some like major security vulnerabilities or something. If you're going to start streaming live coding, would it be YouTube or Twitch? Just curious, don't want to miss that. Probably YouTube, just because I don't see any reason to ever stream on Twitch, because I don't even have well, I do have an account, but I don't even have, like, I don't have a single follower on Twitch. So it seems odd, or it seems pointless for me to like start over on a new platform when I have this platform already. And like, I don't really see a reason to stream on Twitch, other than I think you can potentially make more money on Twitch because of like Prime subs and things like that, and just like the culture of gifting subs there. But I'm not really worried about that. To me, streaming wouldn't be like a primary income source. So yeah, I think I'd stream on YouTube, but maybe I'd consider doing both or something. For AI, Python; for web dev, HTML first, then CSS, then JavaScript. I can agree with that. Backend expert win. I mean, there's infra expert, which is sort of similar, but I have no knowledge of a backend expert ever coming. That's not to say never, but I'm not working on it, at least. YouTube or any corporate life, I mean, I'll take YouTube all day, but like this lifestyle is definitely not for everyone. Fang is just overrated, I guess. I actually don't entirely think that's true. I think in some ways Fang is underrated. Like people have this perception that they like work you to death and things like that, which just like, at least in my experience, was not true. Like it actually, I think lived up to most of the expectations. I got paid great. I worked with amazing, smart people. I worked on things I thought were like at least somewhat interesting, and I had a great work-life balance, great managers. Like I have nothing bad to say about my experience. Hi from Morocco. Hi from Seattle. Intro, please. What do you mean by that? Like you want me to do a new intro of what we're talking about, or we're just chatting? What is the most competitive and challenging projects you've worked on that you've overcome and you're so proud of that you can share? Am I being interviewed right now? Most competitive or challenging project? I don't know. It's hard to say. Yeah, I don't have a great answer for that. Low key, my first intern project in like, what was that, 2018 or 20, yeah, I think 2018 was really cool. It was a tool that's built into the IDE they use at Meta, where it allows you to take some commit and visually like drag pieces of it. So like say, oh, this function actually, let's move it to a different commit. You can kind of like move it across the stack to make it easier to review the code. And that was a really cool project. But I don't know. I've probably worked on harder things since then, but that's like one of my favorite things I ever worked on. I'm using AI tools to write code, but the problem is that as much as I'm using AI tool to write, I'm forgetting the code structure. So what is your opinion? But yes, I know what the code is doing. I don't know. I don't think using AI tools to actually write code at this point in time is a great idea, to be honest. I think it's great to use AI tools for things like writing tests, for things like checking code, for things like maybe a little bit of autocomplete. But as far as like just saying like, hey, implement this for me, I don't think it works well enough yet. Did my light just die? That was sad. The light turned off. Let's see if we can move this one. There we go. Kind of. Sort of. That was disappointing. Rest in peace, light. What do you think about getting into ML in 2025? Would you want to do ML engineering or research? I mean, I personally wouldn't, because it's just like not something that's interesting to me. Hit the mic. Not interesting to me on like a personal level, but like if you're into it, then by all means, it's a hot field. If I have a program's idea, but no one ever tried to make similar idea, what does that mean? I don't know. It means exactly what you just said. Although I will say, I think most ideas have been tried. I don't think the idea of like new, or the concept of new ideas, is a very real thing. I live in Syria, where there are basically zero opportunities locally, and it's difficult to get to network or get a chance. It's hard for me to, what would you advise me to do to get remote work? It's hard for me to answer that because, I mean, I've never been in your position. So I'm not really sure, to be honest. Opinion of Nest.js? I've never used it, so I don't know. We're way behind again. All right, let's do a little speed run of some questions. Can you suggest 3 good capstone projects that is good for a backend web dev portfolio? Do something that's interesting to you. It's hard. There's not like a good and bad project. It's just things that are interesting to you. What are you learning nowadays? Any amazing thing you found, or trying anything new? I honestly haven't really learned much new stuff recently. I haven't really been writing a whole lot of code, if I'm being honest. How's it to work with Clement? Clement's amazing. Yeah. He's a grinder. He works a lot, or at least at one point he did. And yeah, he's a good dude. I like Clement. I'm learning React in Node.js now after learning HTML, CSS, and JS. Nice. How old are you? I'm 27. Yo, I was at a like YouTube event the other day when someone asked me how old I was, and it took me a solid like minute to remember. I was just like, I don't know what about it. I was like, that was the first time I felt old in a while, where it's like, oh, I've gotten to the point where I have to like do math to remember how old I am. But I'm 27. I've learned HTML. Can I apply to Google now? You can apply. You probably won't get hired. What do you think of learning Python in 2025? It's a good thing to learn. It's useful. What's the best free AI assistant that you can use natively in IntelliJ? I don't know. Depends what you mean by best. They're just different. And also, it's hard for me to like, even if you gave me an idea of what best means to you, it would be hard for me to quantify which one's better than the other. Remote work has went back to pre-COVID standards. If you have years of remote experience, you're good. If remote during COVID won't help. I don't know if that's entirely true. I think we're still seeing more remote work than we saw during pre-COVID, but it's gone back a little bit. Is Golang and Rust for backend development? For the most part. Appreciate your work. I appreciate you watching it. Rest in peace, Light. I know, it's so sad. I mean, it just ran out of battery. I just need to put batteries in it, but... There's a ghost in your room. What's the process you follow for reviewing pull requests or merge requests? One, read what they said. Make sure you understand what the goal is. Two, test it. Make sure it actually works. Or better yet, hopefully they added like a video to show it works so you don't have to do that yourself. Three, read the code and make sure you understand what all the code does and understand and try to see if there's anything that seems logically incorrect, if there's anything that seems poorly organized, if there's anything that seems redundant with code that already exists and we shouldn't be re-implementing it. See if there's any dependencies that are being introduced, and if there are, make sure those dependencies aren't going to cause any problems. Think about any code they changed and are there downstream effects that they might have not noticed, things like that. Make sure there's tests and that those tests are actually testing what the code does. Going to learn AI and ML, is it worth it? It can be. Are you okay? I don't know, am I? There's a ghost. I want to create a Web3 application. What's the step? I mean, there's a lot of steps. It depends on what the Web3 application is, but I'm not an expert in Web3 in any regard. Do you think programming is still worth learning in this AI era? If so, how do we approach it? Yes, it's still worth learning if it's interesting to you. How do you approach it? There's a lot of ways. You could go the route of like a computer science degree. You could go the route of a coding bootcamp, although honestly I don't really recommend coding bootcamps too much anymore. Or you can take courses online, whether they be free ones on YouTube or paid courses, and just practice a lot, figure out what's interesting to you, build stuff. What's a free AI assistant that you can use in your code editor that can read your dependencies if there's one like that? I mean, I think a lot of them can, right? Like, I think Augment could do that to some degree. I think Cursor could do that to some degree. I think QDeveloper could probably do that to some degree. Bro's getting age. Actually, though, I big time cooked, or at least boomer. Like, I was shook. I was like how, like, I'm how old? How many times have you said, I don't know, it depends on the stream? Too many. But that's the honest answer, is like most things, it depends, right? Like there's no one size fits all solution for almost anything in tech, or almost anything in the world for that matter, but especially in tech. Are developers introverts and stressed while talking to others and explaining their code? I mean, I don't think that like all developers are the same. I would say maybe on average, the average developer is more introverted than the average non-developer. But there are plenty of developers who are very extroverted people. Just behind you, there's a bug. Oh, he's my friend now. For front-end dev, what would you recommend most, React, Angular, Vue? I mean, it depends, but React probably. Is reverse engineering for LinkedIn works for expecting my 5 years? I don't know what that means. If you have project ideas, I can do it for you for free for you. I can learn. No thanks. Do you think T-shaped dev is a thing nowadays? What do you recommend? Diving deep into one's area for broadening your perspective? Yeah, I do. If I recall, the idea of a T-shaped developer is that you should have like surface level understanding of a lot of things and a deep understanding of a few things. And I think that's kind of still the case. I think that's the case outside of software development too. I think that's just the case in general. Like, if you want to succeed in some area, there's sort of two important things to succeeding in that area, regardless of what it is. Number one is understanding it broadly and understanding the space that you're in. And number two is becoming a subject matter expert in something to where you are like the go-to person for something, right? And that could be being the go-to person on like your small team at a company, or it could be much larger when you become like a go-to person at an industry level. But generally speaking, I think that both of those things are sort of requirements for a deep level of success in any field. Do you need to be a good problem solver to be a good developer? I don't like the idea of like quantifying like, oh, this person's a good problem solver. I think it's a learned skill, but you do need to learn that skill over time. I just watched your React coding interview with Wordle. That was amazing. Now I've challenged myself coding Wordle and it's felt the same way. Hey, good luck. And thank you. Also, that video, so that video is 1,000 days old. And it's been getting usually like a couple hundred views a day for the last like 2 years. And in the first like month, it got like 100,000 views. And since then it gets like a couple hundred views a day, if that, sometimes less. Over the last like week or two, it's been getting like 100 views an hour. And I'm like, where are these views coming from? Why is the almighty YouTube algorithm just randomly deciding to push this video I made almost 3 years ago? How hard is it to learn GraphQL? It's not that hard. It's hard to like objectively say like, oh, it's 7 out of 10 hardness or something, right? But I don't think it's like the hardest thing in the world to learn. At least at like a surface level. What do you reckon? I like that word. A degree, apprenticeship in software engineering, or a university degree in computer science? I'm going back to the classic it depends answer, but generally speaking, computer science bachelor's degrees are going to open more doors than other things. But your mileage may vary, right? Like your own life situation is your own life situation. Would you be able to run DeepSeek Coder locally? I have a 7090. I have no idea. I've never tried. I don't really know much about DeepSeek, to be honest. Do you think AI can take developers' jobs? Not anytime soon. I think just another tool for developers to use. As fun as vibe coding as a concept is, it's not taking jobs anytime soon. The amount of technologies required for front-end jobs can be a bit overwhelming these days. What are the core things you should know to get your foot in the door? HTML, CSS, JavaScript, TypeScript, React, maybe Next. Those are probably the most core things. Let's see. What was a turning point in your early career where you felt like you finally leveled up as a developer? I'm still in college and juggling projects and classes. Just wondering if one moment hit. Oh, I actually do have a good moment for this. So my first internship was at Meta. And I think like most people, there's a lot of sort of imposter syndrome associated with that. And I wouldn't say I was necessarily struggling in any regard, but like it felt like it was very difficult to get through my project. It was a complicated project and all that. And then on July 4th, which if you're not in the US, July 4th is a holiday here, one of my friends that I met in that internship, who now is one of my closest friends, but at the time we hadn't known each other that long, was like, hey, we should watch, there's fireworks in Seattle on the roof of the, there's fireworks in Seattle that you can see from the roof of the Facebook building. It's like a great view. So he was like, hey, we should go to the office on July 4th, get some work done, get ahead, and then watch the fireworks. Like, cool. So we went to the office, and I kid you not, I probably got half of my intern project done in that one day. Something about that day, just like the pure focus mode of I was literally the only person on my entire floor in the office. There was nobody near me, no distractions. I had nothing to do but write code. And it was like so many things clicked all at once. And literally like half of my intern project was done in one day. So I would say that was like a moment for me where I was like, wait, I'm kind of good at this. Or I could be good at this. I didn't know T-shaped dev till now, but learned today. Thanks, mate. And yes, you can ignore my previous messages. Yeah, the T-shaped dev thing, I think it's like, I forget the guy's name who like coined the term, but it's like the name of somebody's blog, I think. But Yeah. What's vibe coding? Vibe coding's the idea of just using AI to kind of do everything and just like going by the vibes and people who know little to nothing about programming trying to build stuff just by like asking Cursor to do stuff. And it's probably not a great idea, but it's kind of a fun concept. Is there still computer science jobs that pay well? Absolutely. Is it as easy to get those jobs as it was in like 2019, 2020? No, but they certainly exist. What do the internship recruiters mostly look for in a candidate? I mean, like technical and soft skills? It depends on the company and the recruiter, but it's mostly technical skills. Like the soft skills will come out during the interview process, but it's not like they're like scanning your resume necessarily for soft skills. They're looking for any prior experience if you have it. Like unfortunately, they're kind of looking for previous internships, but also things like teaching assistant positions, things like that. They're looking for usually data structures and algorithms. They're looking for the fact that you've like done something, built some projects, gone to some hackathons, stuff like that. And typically they're looking for whatever languages are being used at that company. Can vibe coding be useful besides speed prototyping? I mean, like maybe, probably not. It's kind of funny, but I don't think it's like useful in the sense of if you actually don't understand programming and you just like, or if you just decide I'm just going to trust the AI, you're going to end up with poorly written code, with security vulnerabilities, all that. Or the projects like that you did in your internship? Yeah, I talked about one of them a little bit ago, but essentially the idea of the project, I hope I can talk about this now, it's been a while. So they have an IDE that they use internally at Meta. I don't even know if they still use it, but at the time they did. And essentially you could take a commit that you had, so like a Git commit, they actually use Mercurial, but pretty much the same thing as Git. You can take a commit and you could visually see all the code in the commit like a diff, and say, hey, I want to move like this function into a new commit. I want to move this function into this commit. I want to move this over here, this over there. And you can sort of like drag stuff around and make a stack of commits instead of a single commit, which the idea being that it makes it easier to do code review when things are sort of in smaller chunks. That was my first internship. And then I did one at Lyft where essentially the project was building a tool for testing across all the different microservices at Lyft. Yeah, it was sort of about like standardizing testing a little bit. And then my last internship at Facebook, I worked on Marketplace on a tool that I don't think exists anymore, but it was meant to help you research cars. So if you were like buying a car on Facebook Marketplace, it would give you information from I forget where it came from, but it would give you information from somewhere on things like the miles per gallon and like just info you would want on cars and like reviews and stuff like that. Thoughts on quant jobs? I mean, they pay super well. They're hard to get, but I don't think it seems particularly interesting. But if it's interesting to you and you can get one, they pay really well. Where do I find intern recruiters? LinkedIn, career fairs, just by applying to the companies. Is Python still worth learning in 2025 for someone who wants to be a full stack web developer? It can be, yeah. Software engineering jobs pay 100K plus now, but with inflation and cost of living, it doesn't feel that crazy. How do you weigh going the startup entrepreneur route versus taking a stable job? I mean, it just is like what your own goals are in life, right? But while inflation exists, I don't think, at least in the US, you're going to find software engineers who have jobs who would tell you that they're like struggling to get by, unless maybe it's like a single software engineer supporting a family of 4 in the Bay Area or something at a startup. But like generally speaking, they're well-paid jobs. Further up the line, are math qualifications important when applying for computer science jobs or education? Because I would say I'm quite good at programming, but I have to force myself. Unless you're applying at like quant firms or you're applying to do like some specialized like ML stuff or something, no, nobody cares. If you're just applying to be like a software engineer at Google, they are not going to quiz you on math. Is it a good idea to switch from development to DevOps? Just do whatever's more interesting to you. What's the difference between front-end developer and front-end engineer? Absolutely nothing, just different words. There are some countries where the term engineer is more of like a reserved term, and you can only use it if you have some kind of engineering certification or something. Like in the US, we have professional engineering, but it's not like a legal requirement to have it in your job title. Like I can't call myself an attorney without passing the bar. It's sort of the same thing for engineer in some places, but in the US, the terms are pretty much just interchangeable. Some people like to say that engineer is like a more advanced job, but like it's not. They're just different job titles. Doing data analytics for my next job, but a bit confused. Should I do data structures and algorithms first or just follow the roadmap? I would, if you're following some kind of roadmap, I would probably stick to whatever that roadmap is. Hard for me to answer. I don't think I have enough context. Is coding dead or not? We still watch your amazing content. I appreciate that you will watch regardless of if we're cooked, but no, I don't think coding's going anywhere. Should I try vibe coding, and why would I? Sounds like stupidity. I mean, it kind of is. It's kind of a fun concept, but don't feel like you need to vibe code to exist in this industry. You do not. How to be irreplaceable, learn the company's analytics platform, SDK. Yeah, in some ways, I think that's truth to that. Which CS field do you think is worth more learning regardless of the AI rise? It's worth learning whatever is most interesting to you. There's no like one size fits all. What's interesting to me is different than what's interesting to you. And even if one thing pays better than the other, one thing has better job opportunities or whatever, you are going to be happiest in your life doing the thing that is most interesting to you. And any field or subfield within software engineering or computer science is going to pay enough to pay the bills. What do you think of Mark Zuckerberg's statement? We're going to have an AI that can effectively be a sort of mid-level engineer that you have at your company that can write code. I would say, show it to me. Right? Like, that sounds very similar to when Elon Musk told us in like 2010 or something. It might have not been that long ago, but whenever Elon Musk told us that we were going to have self-driving cars in like a year, we still have self-driving cars. We have cars that can like stay in a lane, sort of, unless they see a butterfly, then they slam on the brakes. Like, I think it's the same thing. I think we've done 20% of the work and gotten 80% of the result. I clear interviews but struggle on job. Also have ADHD. I mean, it's kind of how it can be for a lot of people, but over time you'll get better at it. The posh voice. I'm glad you like the posh voice. I don't know where that came from. What's the new setup for coding in 2025? We've got ChatGPT, Claude, Grok, DeepSeek tabs open as we speak. Man's got all the AI going. I don't know. I just write code. I'll be honest, like I like reviewing the AI tools and stuff, but I don't actively use them that much. Like they're useful. I don't think you need to use more than one or two of them, and it can be any of the ones you mentioned: GPT, Claude, Cursor, DeepSeek, Augment. I don't know, whatever. There's a bunch of them. Codium, Llama, whatever you want to use. It's hard to depend on Gen AI when coding. It's hard not to depend on Gen AI when coding in a fast-paced environment. There's probably some truth to that. I think you can use Gen AI without depending on it, though. What do you think about design engineer job? It's cool. Yeah, it can mean different things at different companies. Like at some companies, it's basically a front-end engineer. At other companies, it's basically a designer, and at others, it's something in between. But it's a cool job. I think it seems pretty interesting. Do you know of free tunneling service that can support high transfer speeds and isn't time limited? No, I don't. Your thoughts on Next.js drama going on? I didn't know there was drama. What's the drama? Spill the tea. Tell me that juicy drama. Let's gossip about Next.js, I guess. Just got a dev job. Hey, congrats, Brandon. Focusing mainly on building apps with AI integration. Haven't done much of that. Any tips, articles, or videos you recommend? Apps with AI integration. I mean, it's hard for me. I don't like have recommendations specific to that thing. But I would say utilize the people and the resources at the company that you are working at a lot. They are hopefully there to help you. I would say whatever tools you are using, like if you're using like the OpenAI APIs or whatever APIs you might be using, go try to find tutorials on that on YouTube. Go read the documentation, things like that. But I don't have like any super specific tips. But congrats on the job. Currently, DeepSeek Coder works better than GPT. Use that info how you would like. And better subjective, but maybe I haven't tried DeepSeek. I have many advanced skills in creating and building and wonder what the best method to showcase those skills. The best way to showcase skills of building things is to build stuff. And to put it out for the world to see. Where would you say is the best place to start to get technologically literate? I don't, it depends what you mean by that. You mean like learning how to code, or do you mean like I don't know what you mean by, like tech literate could be like trying to teach my grandmother how to update her Facebook status, or it could be like trying to learn Python. So like, I don't know exactly. And those would take me in different routes. But if you're trying to learn like computer science stuff, I think CS50 is a good place to start. I think just like tutorials on YouTube are a good place to start. Auth middleware issue in Next.js. I haven't read about it. One thing people are oftentimes surprised about with me is I don't really read much dev stuff. Like I don't read like Hacker News every morning or Reddit CS stuff, or I'm not like, I don't even, I'm subscribed to most of the major software engineering YouTubers just because I've met a good number of them and they're cool people, and just to like see what people in the space are doing, but I don't watch most of their content, honestly. Like I don't keep that up to date on random drama. I don't go on Twitter, X or whatever, or Blue Sky or any of that. Like I'm just like so out of the loop constantly. I'll look into the Next.js stuff after this though. I'm kind of curious. Look into it while I eat lunch or something today. New aspiring developer, second year CS student. I'm currently learning backend and Java, even though I don't know JavaScript. Any suggestions? I mean, those things. The name of JavaScript is very confusing because it has nothing to do with Java. They are completely unrelated. There's some like history there where they named it that because they thought it would. I believe it's something to the effect of they thought by naming it JavaScript while Java was super popular that it would be easier to gain popularity. But they're unrelated, so you don't like need to know JavaScript to learn Java. About to get my summer student attachment. I did software development. A little nervous. Any tips? Summer, is that like an internship? I don't know what that means. So I don't know what that's referring to. What data structures algorithm course would you recommend? If you're trying to do coding interviews, well, there's one on Algo Expert. Plug. Is this inverted? I don't know if y'all can even read that. It's probably inverted because I'm using the like front-facing camera, isn't it? Well, there's one on Algo Expert if you are subscribed to that. To be honest, Algo Expert is great. I would not subscribe just for the purpose of the data structures course. It's sort of a side thing. But if you are subscribed, go through that. If you aren't, YouTube. I don't know. I don't have like a specific one, but I'm sure there's good ones on YouTube. Hey, Connor, I want to hear your opinion on C++. I'm learning it for the first time in my CSC class, and I'm struggling with its syntax. In what area does C++ shine? Yeah, C++ syntax is it's a little different if you're not used to it. It shines most in like performance reliant things. So more low level infrastructure where it's very important to like micro optimize for performance. C++ can shine there. Things like writing compilers, things like writing like low level things for operating systems, stuff like that. It can also be used at times in like game development and other places where just like performance is super important. I've been experimenting with local LLMs, and I think we're going to be using Anthropic API in the company, so I'm just worried about like API costs if I mess things up. Luckily, most of the APIs have pretty good tools to make sure that you can't run up a bill that you didn't intend to. Basically, you could bypass middleware just by sending the right header. Well, that's not good. You hate to see it. It's not inverted, so you can actually read this? Because on my phone, it's inverted, so I can't read that. But I guess it YouTube maybe re-inverts it. I love you, Connor. Thanks for sharing your genius. Hey, I appreciate it. I don't know if I'd call myself a genius, but I appreciate the support. Where'd you learn JavaScript? So I first learned it in college. So I took a web dev class at my university. And then I did an internship at Meta where I learned it probably more deeply there. Compiled or interpreted for my own language? Depends what you want it to do. I think writing interpreters is generally speaking easier than writing a compiler, but it just depends on the goal. Are you still working at AlgoExpert? I still work with AlgoExpert. I'm not like actively working in their code base or something, but I work to promote it on YouTube. I'm an instructor on AlgoExpert and the instructor for Frontend Expert, but I'm not like actively on a day-to-day basis doing AlgoExpert things beyond mentioning it in videos. But I never left or anything. It's sort of the intended path all along was this. What's your thoughts on Svelte? I love Svelte. I don't know that I would use it for many like production things because it's just, it doesn't have as, at least if you're trying to like build a company or something, because there's not as many developers that know it. There's not as big of an open source ecosystem for it as something like React, but it's awesome. I love Svelte. It's one of my favorite frameworks to use. I just finished, oh, where'd it go? I just finished my JavaScript course after I did CSS and HTML. I want to go into systems and software development. What would be the smartest next language to learn? I just finished JavaScript course after I did CSS. I want to go into systems and software development. Probably, I mean, it depends on like exactly what you mean by that. It could be like, I would say probably learning something more back-end oriented, whether it be Python or Go or Rust, probably one of those. But it would depend on like what exactly it is you're interested in. Can you arrange any job for front-end developers? No. I do not have magical abilities to give people jobs, unfortunately. What's the best resource, in your opinion, for people to learn data structures and algorithms in depth that aren't in university? In depth, I don't know. I don't like know of one in particular. If it's for the purpose of coding interviews, I do think the AlgoExpert course is really good, but obviously I'm biased. But if you wanted to like learn it very in depth, it's probably like some university course that's online for free. Probably something like Coursera or something. What does it mean to be an AI engineer? When I hear that term, to me that means somebody who's like creating LLMs or creating AI tools, not somebody who's just using them, but I guess different words mean different things to different people. What tasks do you usually do at Meta? Wrote a lot of code, went to a lot of meetings, discussed what things we should build the things. Is a bachelor's in artificial intelligence worth it? Is that a thing? I've never heard of a university offering that, but I mean, it could be worth it. What are your thoughts on .NET framework? Where does it stand in modern development? I haven't used it much, so it's hard for me to really have thoughts on it. But I mean, it's fine. I don't think it's like the most popular modern thing, but like there's certainly still people using it. Is that a Windows 11 logo behind you? It kind of looks like it, doesn't it? I never thought about that. Those are just they're acoustic panels. This room was super, super echoey. So these things, there's more on the wall in front of me too, and like all over here. They're like super high-end acoustic panels that make the echo like a million times better in here. Best styling for React Native? I've only used React Native like once or twice, so I don't know. I want to be a good coder, but I can't make logic on my own. I'm a beginner. Any tips for logic building? Practice. Practice, practice, practice. You'll get better at it. I don't have like a specific tip though, other than that. The Svelte ecosystem is much larger than it seems because you can just use JavaScript. Yeah, there's probably truth to that. Although a lot of vanilla JavaScript things are very old because most things these days, like if somebody was to build some modern UI thing, they're probably building it in like React or something. But that is a fair point. There's certainly lots of things that are just like vanilla JS that you could use within Svelte. Was your PM technical? If not, I feel bad. I mean, I've worked with a lot of PMs. Most of the PMs I've ever worked with have been technical, yes. Yeah, most of the PMs I've worked with were former software engineers. Or some were just, had always been PMs, but like had computer science degrees or had some other technical background. But that's definitely not every PM. Somewhere to land remote jobs, especially for someone from Africa. I don't know. I've never been a person from Africa, so it's hard for me to like give advice on that. Do I need a good degree to get a high-paying job, or does building big projects like school management website can help me get a job? The easiest, most straightforward path to getting a job in software engineering is having a computer science degree from a reputable 4-year university. Is that the only way? No. Are there other paths? Yes. Is it necessary? No. Is it significantly easier? Yes. Is it the right choice for everybody? No. Is it the right choice for a lot of people? Yes. Right? Like, I don't know your situation enough, but yeah. What programming language is most sought after? I mean, the most used language in the world is JavaScript because the internet runs on JavaScript. So I guess that. But it kind of depends what you mean by sought after. Hello, how are you today? I'm great. Chilling. I get to yap on the internet for a living. I'm going to get off here in a little bit, go get some Chipotle. So what's better than that? I'm going to play tennis with a YouTube friend in a few hours, or like 5 hours. Excited for some tennis. I'm super washed these days. Hey, I graduated with a CS degree. After 1.5 years, I'm struggling to get a job. Also, I'm not learning because of focus. I'm not focusing one thing. How do I solve my problem? Interest in web dev. I mean, it kind of sounds like you're asking two different things. Like the problem of like how do you focus is not really something I feel like I can answer. But as far as like getting a job, I would say one of two things is happening. Either one, you're not getting interviews, or two, you're not passing the interviews. If you're not getting interviews, one of two things is happening. Either one, your resume sucks, in which case, make it better. Make it the best document you've ever made in your life. That could mean building more projects to make it better in that way, or it can mean just making the actual document itself better, getting people to give you feedback on it, things like that. Or two, you're not applying to enough jobs, in which case, apply to more jobs. Now, if you are getting interviews and you're not passing them, you need to study more for coding interviews. And again, one of two things could be happening. Number one, you just aren't good enough at the coding interview questions, in which case you need to practice those more. Or two, you're not doing a good enough job in those interviews of actually communicating and discussing your ideas, in which case, while you're practicing for coding interviews, you need to be practicing the process of actually verbally articulating your thought process and how you're coming to solutions. So yeah, I'd say it's probably somewhere in that realm. But also just know like it's a very competitive market right now, so you're not alone. It was Web3, then it was AI, now it's vibe coding. There's always a new buzzword. To be fair, vibe coding I think is mostly a meme. I hope. It is funny though. The amount of people, even in person, like I was at an event the other day, and like not a tech event. I was at a YouTube event, and a bunch of people asked me when I mentioned that, when they learned that I do like software engineering stuff, about vibe coding. And I'm like, how do you even know about that? Like, why is this meme somehow like getting outside the realm of software engineers? Have you ever tried using Node.js for a desktop app, trying to get motivation to finish porting Win32 to Node? Yeah, I've used Node.js for a bunch of stuff. How to focus? You need good coffee. Fair, fair. Should we put our side projects in the resume because we don't have real world projects to put? I mean, if you don't have real world projects, then yes, put side projects. And even if you do, I think potentially still put side projects, depending on what they are. Because of your lessons, especially at Algo Expert, I managed to level up my career and landed my dream job in big tech. I just saw you were live and come to say thank you. Hey, Pedro, I appreciate that. And congratulations. That stuff like that makes me so happy. I love to hear that. That's awesome. What's the easiest way to promote an app? It depends what the target demographic is, but I think generally speaking right now, the easiest way to promote most applications is, and maybe I'm biased, but I think it tends to be through influencers. Do you have a partner? No. I have 3 years of experience, but a 2-year gap due to it's like falling into deep depression after losing my father. Man, sorry to hear that. And I didn't do anything during that gap. Any tips on getting interviews in this market? 3 years of experience to 2-year gap. I wouldn't worry too much about the gap. It's unfortunate that some companies, when they see a resume gap, think negatively of it. But I think that perception has changed a lot over time, and I don't think it's as big of a thing anymore. So I think the advice would be the same as the advice if that gap didn't exist. Maybe there's a little bit of extra advice of like make sure that the skills are still sharp, right? So you might need to spend some time practicing for coding interviews or just like building a project or two just to like sort of get the wheels turning a little bit. And then I think it's kind of the same thing, right? Like it's work on the resume a lot. Be prepared to answer the question of why that gap is there, unfortunately. But you might be asked. And then, yeah, work on your resume a lot. Practice for coding interviews. Apply to as many places as you can. And good luck. Hello, tell me about the most difficult task you've ever done and what was the problem? Most difficult task I've ever done? I don't know. Yeah, I don't think I have a good answer for that. What advice would you give a beginner who is trying to break into machine learning and AI? I don't know because I haven't done it, so it's hard for me to answer that. What languages are you using or learning the most for your personal projects? JavaScript is by far the thing I use the most. And I'm not really building a lot of projects right now, to be honest. Like my focus is mostly on content. So, do you think referrals still matter? Yes, absolutely. A referral is astronomically better than applying cold. It's not necessary, but it's much better. Hey Connor, big thanks for what you're doing here and for all your videos and motivation you give me. Hey, I appreciate that. I'm glad you find the content helpful. What database should I learn besides MongoDB? Something relational that would be okay for web dev and backend and mobile. Good in general. I'm not stuck on it, but I need to choose one. If you want to learn a relational database, just learn one of the flavors of SQL. Probably, I would guess the most popular right now is probably Postgres, so that might be a good one to go with. If you want something simpler, SQLite or MySQL or even SQL Server, but I think Postgres is probably the most widely used at this point, if I had to guess. Tell us your most hated framework just for controversy. Ooh. Hated. I mean, not one for hate. We can all love each other in the world of frameworks, but Angular. The best way to learn JavaScript? Practice. Do courses and then practice, and learn from different places, right? So learn from courses, learn from AI tools, learn from Googling stuff, learn from blogs, learn from YouTube videos, like learn from different places so you're getting different types of information, and then just build stuff. Are you a front-end engineer, full stack, site reliability? The majority of my expertise, I guess, is in the front end, but I don't know. I don't really like labeling in that way. My job title at my last actual job when I wasn't yapping on the internet was just software engineer, so just kind of general, but most of the work I did was front end. Is it a good idea to put projects from YouTube tutorials on your resume, or is it better to put the ones I build myself? Things you build yourself. Because if you put some project that came from like a Tech with Tim video or something, they've seen it before, like multiple times. If you can take that project and do something interesting on top of it, that can be a good idea, but I would not just like put some project from a Web Dev Simplified video or a Tech with Tim video or something on a resume. Can social media and networking much be useful for programmers much as a try improving in the same time? I'm not sure if I fully understand, but I think social media and networking is always useful. How do computers understand 0 and 1? I know about high voltage and low voltage concept, but I'm confused who reads these billions of current patterns, really who taught them to read patterns. I mean, it's just what you said. It is all just electricity moving around. I don't know if I have like a super good answer for you. It's literally just like whether that voltage exists or not. Literally, is like think about like a light switch, right? Like it's literally the process of turning it on, and whatever combination of things that are on is what gives you the end result of how computers operate. Essentially, that's not a very good explanation. Can you let us know when your next live session will be? I have no idea, but I'll try to do this more. This is fun. I haven't done this in a long time. I realized that computer science has become more of my side hobby than my main passion. I love 3D modeling more now. Any idea how CS skills could translate? Maybe you could try game dev. I mean, I think game dev is kind of a intersection between those two things, potentially. But I don't know. I don't know much about 3D modeling stuff. But that's like my first intuition is that game dev or some form of like 3D animation stuff, maybe. What is your build web app or games? I don't know what that means. Could you suggest me some portfolio? My current stack that I'm studying is Spring Boot and React. Just do whatever's interesting to you. I can't really like tell you like you have to build this or that. Like just build things that are interesting to you, because then you'll be able to talk about them more passionately and you'll probably spend more time on them and make them better. All right, I'll go now, but thanks for your content, man. I like your Web Dev Simplified videos. You two are so chill. Hey, I appreciate it. And yeah, like I've never actually met Kyle, but he seems like a cool guy. That's his name, right? I didn't just make that up. I think his name is Kyle. Tell us about the most interesting tasks you've ever done. People have asked that a few times. I don't really know. I don't have a good answer. I'll go with Postgres. Cool. Is Code Academy good? It can be. Let's see. We're kind of behind again. Let's speed run these a little bit. Next.js or combo between React and Express.js. I like Next, but either's fine. If you don't need all the features of Next, then Express might actually be better. Just simpler. Pebbles, no training course is good. Pebbles is a person. I just do a bunch of things you want and find a way to learn without exhausting yourself. I somewhat agree. I got a present for you. It's a t-shirt that says, I survived the Angular JS to Angular 2. How much HTML and CSS before moving on to JavaScript? You don't have to be like an expert or anything. If you could build a static website that is, say, a portfolio type thing, right? It just like has, or not a portfolio, like a resume type thing, where it just like says information about you and it's properly laid out and you can make it look decent. Not like in the design sense, but like you can make it look how you want it to look, then I think you know enough to move on to JavaScript. If you understand selectors to some extent, you understand classes and IDs, you understand things like that, I think you're kind of good on CSS for being able to move on. I want to build a gaming website, scaled in Mern. How do I do it? I don't know what you mean by gaming website. It's kind of hard for me to answer, but by starting, I suppose. I don't have like specific, like you must do these steps to build this website. Have a great time. Hey, appreciate it. All right, we got to stop spamming the same question. I still don't have an answer for you. What are you going to learn in the near future? I know you're focusing on being an influencer, but still maybe have something on your mind right now. I don't know. That's a good question. I do love tech and software engineering, and I want to do more of it, and I want to do more actual like learning stuff instead of just like building projects for videos that are like little tiny side projects. So I'm not entirely sure what that's going to be, but I do want to keep learning more things. So I'll keep you updated. How do you handle situations you have no control over? I'll say, well, you might not have control over a situation. I don't know how this became life advice, but you might not have a control over a situation, but you do have a control, or you do have full control over yourself and how you react to that situation and how you internalize those things. So I would say accept that whatever the situation is what the situation is, and recognize that whatever that thing is isn't necessarily your own fault, and continue to treat people with kindness and respect. And I'll go with that. I've tried front and back end game dev. Whatever other flavors of programming should I try? I mean, those are kind of the main things, or mobile development maybe if you want to, but like it's not like you have to try every type of development. Just do what's interesting to you. Golang, or I don't know what the question is. Love from India. Hey, appreciate the Indian audience. How can programmers pass burnout? Maybe stop working for a while? I think you just, you need to take a little bit of a break, do things that are actually interesting to you. Computers frame their binary processing through physical dams that move voltage around like water. We load a certain part of memory that starts a Turing machine like dominoes falling in order lambdas. That's an interesting way to explain that. I like that. How will the increasing adoption of low-code platforms like OutSystems transform rather than eliminate traditional programming roles? I don't think they really will. I think we'll just see them being used for different things, right? Like I think they're useful for things like agency work, building a website for local restaurants and things like that. But I don't know that they're useful at like the big tech level of engineering. What video editing software do you use? I use Final Cut Pro mostly, but I don't edit my own videos for the most part. I edit like 1 in 5 videos. And I think my editor uses Premiere, but I actually don't even know. How to get out of tutorial hell? Go build something. Take a project you found in a tutorial, finish the tutorial, and then go do something with that project. So expand on it to do something else that was not in the tutorial. That way you have like a good starting place, because sometimes it's really daunting to just like start a project from nothing. Cricket-based game with Mern, can it be done, and what exactly is software engineer? Can it be done? Probably. What is a software engineer? It is one who builds software professionally. All right, I'll answer a couple more questions, and then I gotta go get some lunch. I'm hungry. I need my daily Chipotle intake. How can we convert a web app to desktop application? It depends how exactly you want to do it, but something like, what's it called? Electron could be an option if you want like minimal work. Oh yeah, somebody right under that said Electron. Thanks from Senegal. Hey, it's so crazy to me that there's people watching these things from just like everywhere. How are your thoughts about LLMs? Using them too much will make us forget fundamentally, but they help us increase productivity. Thoughts about LLMs using them too much? Yeah, I mean, I think use them for learning rather than using them for doing. So don't ask, do this thing for me. Ask, teach me how to do this thing. How much did you earn per month at Facebook? I have videos on it. My total comp at Facebook was around $250,000 a year-ish. So per month, like 20 grand before taxes. Any tips to find such projects? Like tutorial projects? Just like go find tutorials on YouTube. Like go use like a Tech with Tim tutorial or something. Your LinkedIn ID, it's just my name. It's probably in the description, I think. All right, let's answer one more question. What will be the role or use of coders in the future? AI tools may come. I think coders with coding mind. So programmers, software engineers, coders, whatever you want to call it, I don't think are going anywhere. I think all of these tools are similar to tools we've built over decades, right? We have done so many different iterations of how programmers work to make it more efficient, right? Like at one point they used literal punch cards, and then they started typing, and it was like, whoa, this is way easier. And then we built IDEs, and we built high-level programming languages, and we built all of these different things that made programming easier. We built the internet, and then we could use things like Stack Overflow and message boards, and we could ask questions. And now we're building AI, and we can ask questions to that AI, and the AI can help us do a lot of things. But ultimately, all we're doing is making programming more accessible, we're making programming easier, and we're making programming more efficient. And I think that's just kind of what's going to continue to happen. All right, I think that's a good question to end it on. Appreciate you all chatting. I'll do this more. Follow or this is YouTube, not TikTok. Subscribe if you want to see more of this if you're not already. Also, if y'all could hit the like button, that's an easy one. That way this has more likes and it makes me feel good, I think. No, it does help the video because people watch these after the fact, and if they have more likes on them, they do better, I think. Maybe. I don't know. I'm going to Chipotle. I'll see y'all later. Peace. Appreciate y'all chatting. Have a good one.